I'd like to start with a question this morning for us to consider. What is the dominant metaphor in marketing? And I'd like to suggest that despite the amazing technologies like Pandora coming onto the market and some of the innovations that we've undertaken in our own industry that Joan talked about in the video this morning, neuroscience, biometrics, behavioral economics, big data, I'd like to suggest that in spite of all that, the dominant metaphor in marketing is still primarily an industrial, almost mechanical sort of metaphor, nicely illustrated in this video.
Not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz. I said come back tomorrow.
If you were really great and powerful, you'd keep your promises.
Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now. Oh, the great Oz has spoken. Oh. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
You are? I don't believe you.
No, I'm afraid it's true. There's no other wizard except me. You humbug! Yes, it's exactly so. I'm a humbug.
Oh, you're a very bad man.
Oh, no, my dear.
Let's deconstruct this metaphor here. In the metaphor, I'd like to suggest that the Wizard of Oz is somewhat like a chief marketing officer. And at his disposal, he has all kinds of interesting opportunities to engage in marketing. I mean, there's the veritable marketing lever. Did you see him whipping that thing back and forth there in the video? Someone in his insights department discovered a consumer hot button, so he got one of those installed right there on the top. He's flipping that thing up and down. He got a marketing dashboard to impress the CFO. And he had a brand funnel, but he read this article from McKinsey that called it into question, so he gave it to the Tin Man and got himself a loyalty loop. But why does this metaphor break down? Interestingly, toward the end of the clip there, we see Dorothy confront the Wizard of Oz with great passion, with great emotion, and ask, "Who are you? Who are you?" And he kind of dithers around a little bit, trying to come up with an answer. He tries to come back to, "I'm the Wizard of Oz, I'm the great wizard." But in the end, interestingly, poetically, ironically, her entourage looks at each other trying to figure this out, and finally the Scarecrow says, "Why, you're a humbug." And eventually the wizard says, "Why, yes, I guess I am a humbug." So there you have it. In a complete circle, the brand has been socially defined. So this question of emotion and the importance of emotion and the social aspect of brands are really some of the key linchpins in how this metaphor is being challenged. And what I want to suggest is that we consider a more relevant metaphor for these times, and that is to think of brand relationships as human relationships. I've got another video here that sort of illustrates the point, a video that we received from a college student, interesting.
Hi, I'm Brandy, a student at Penn State. I realized I maintain a variety of relationships with the brands in my life. Let's take a look at some. I am not the least bit ashamed to say that I am in a committed relationship with Disney. Over the years, our bond has only grown stronger. Whether it's movies, products, or parks, nothing quite makes me smile like Disney. I cannot see something Disney and not want it. I've been a Facebook lover what seems like forever, but we seem to have hit a rough patch. I can't depend on Facebook because of its constant changes, and I'm often tempted by other social networking sites. In the end, I can't leave Facebook because I've put too much into it. I can't easily move thousands of photos and ignore all of my friends, so I just stay and make things work. I'm aware Popeyes exists, but I've never been to one and I don't really have a desire to go. Don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything there. Looks like it will stay a stranger. I like Twitter, don't get me wrong, but I think that all of a sudden is kind of taken over the world, and there's no escaping that little birdie. Now people are saying hashtag this, follow that. Even my TV shows want me to tweet them. It's like, maybe I don't care what's trending today, so leave me alone. Chipotle is delicious. I just tried it recently and it immediately became my go-to for something quick and reasonable. I haven't developed a close enough relationship with it yet to say we're good friends, and I still always order the same thing, but I know I can count on my buddy Chipotle for a good time. I like Victoria's Secret as a brand, but I've grown out of it. I don't mean physically, but rather I found other brands that are a better fit for me, literally and figuratively. I don't have bad feelings towards Vicky, but we've just grown apart. Thanks for watching.
So we think brand relationship metaphors are very interesting. Very interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, they are intrinsically emotional, they're rich, they're organic, they're evocative. They're also obviously social. I mean, a relationship is a social construct. So it's infused with the idea of connection between the consumer and the brand, but also recognizes that these relationships evolve and change over time, taking many forms through the consumer's journey in their relationships with the brands in any category that they're active in. Third, it's intuitive. It's intuitive for consumers. We can talk to them about it using those metaphors. And it's intuitive for advertisers because it is so evocative. So when we understand that a particular brand is like a fling or is a committed relationship, all kinds of associations instantly come to our minds from a strategic point of view about how to manage the brand. And in the end, it's strategic for marketing. It's relevant, it's dynamic, and it is behavioral because all these relationships have, and these roles have behavioral outcomes that are relevant for us from a financial point of view. So what have we done about this idea? What have we done about this idea? We conducted a global R&D program of research in collaboration with a great academic partner. Susan Fournier at Boston University is probably one of the most leading experts on brand relationships and brand communities. And she has written extensively about this topic and is a very challenging and vigorous collaborator for us. The research that we did was global in scale in 4 different markets, selected for cultural diversity: the US, Germany, Spain, China, looking at 11 categories, and it says 100 plus brands. It's actually over 200 brands represented in this research. And in this research, what we wanted to understand was, first of all, is this construct of relationships, human relationships, stable across cultures? That is this going to be usable as a foundation on a global scale? Secondly, what kinds of relationships are most relevant for brands? Not every kind of relationship may be relevant, and so we want to make sure that we understand the most relevant ones. And then finally, benchmarking a variety of brands on those relationships. What we found happily, and I must say not too surprisingly, is that the structure of human relationships is very stable across cultures. This is the first 2 of a multidimensional solution that illustrates the kinds of relationships that we measured and what that underlying structure is. You'll notice the horizontal dimension here represents some degree of evaluation or positivity. On the right, you've got things like best friend and close sibling and marriage partner. On the left side, you have things like a deceiver, enemy, annoying acquaintance. And the vertical dimension represents a a sort of intensity or potency kind of dimension. On the bottom, you have things like casual acquaintance, online friend, complete stranger. And toward the top, highly passionate, activated relationships like love-hate relationship and stalker on the negative side, or marriage partner and close sibling on the positive side. So we found that these relationships are stable across these cultures. But we also found a couple interesting details about those relationships. We were able to project into this space all kinds of relationship attributes, statistically project into the space. Over 100 different relationship dimensions provide us with a kind of rich understanding of the construct and the dimensionality of this space. And you can see just a couple examples. Trapped and hostile on the upper left, and you can see friendly and free on the bottom, and over on the right, deep and exclusive, etc. So this is a stable space. It's a good foundation. But we also discovered that there were important variances in this space and important differences in how people use relationships as a metaphor for brands. And these relationship associations differ across cultures to some extent, and also, most interestingly, across categories. That is to say, different categories have different types of, or patterns of associations with their brands. So for example, you take in the United States the television network brand space. Brands like Disney, PBS, Fox News, CNN, Comedy Central, HBO. What we found in the United States is when we look at the pattern of associations with those brands, we in fact come up with some very interesting clusters. Again, data-driven clusters. On the right side, on the more positive side, two clusters. One, the close colleague cluster, 26% of relationships with television networks as a close colleague, but also kind of overlapping in that space, an old childhood friend. You can imagine brands like Disney and PBS. On the far left side, in the corner, the bottom left corner, a complete stranger is a very clear and dominant pattern. 8% of relationship types, 23% casual acquaintances, and then finally in the upper left, a sort of annoying stalker sensibility kind of relationship that people have with the brand. This clustering is very different in different markets for different categories. Take, for example, the German automotive market. You can see it's the same array of points in the same stable space, but the way brands are associated with these relationships differ. You can see we have still the complete stranger, 21% of the relationships with automobile brands in Germany. You can see casual acquaintances there. But on the positive side, we've got a distinction between what we call close admired partners and old-time friendships. Moving over to the left, the beloved hero, a sort of a combination of secret affair and fling and deep respect, but some distance in the relationship. And finally, a sort of soured breakup kind of relationship. We can then project into these space these brand profiles I was talking about a while ago. Here are just some of the brands that we looked at in the German automotive market. You can see the black bar represents Mercedes-Benz, a very strong penetration among close admired partners, as is Ford and BMW. You see the old-time friendship, though, is more closely associated with BMW. You take a look at the beloved hero, that's where Porsche really comes on strong, the green bar. And then you can see Kia just coming into the German automotive market, complete stranger or some trepidation about the car brand from Korea coming into Germany. So we can profile brands here, we can understand what the nature and the distribution of relationships are in this sort of customized clustering of relationship types for brands. But we can also gain insight about the transition or the evolution of the brands through the customer's journey. Sort of logically, things start as a stranger, then you become a casual acquaintance. From there, you may move to a beloved hero. You may develop a more enduring relationship, a close admired partner that may evolve over time into an old-time friendship, or things may go wrong, and so you end up with a soured relationship or breakup, and that could come from a beloved hero or even from a casual acquaintance. But then most interestingly, from a strategic point of view, we can take a look at the brand characteristics that are associated with these transitions. and begin to get some insight into how we can manage brands better to produce more positive and sustainable relationships with consumers. And then secondly, we can take this kind of approach into very tactical kinds of environments, for example. I mean, you might expect that brand relationships are pretty enduring, but we've done some ad testing in our Advantage system using this approach and found some very interesting results. Can you play the video?
Kein Schwipsgesicht, keine Erfrischung.
Heute schon geschwippt.
And just very briefly, you can see when we do a pre versus post measurement of the relationship types that people associate with the Schweppes brand, that we get a lift in the relationship type old best friend and a decline in the relationship type enemy. So even the temporal exposure of an ad to a consumer can produce these small but statistically reliable shifts in the kind of relationships that we have. So we can evaluate the extent to which the strategy, the content, the executional style is evoking a specific relationship type. So in closing, we think that brand relationships and this human metaphor idea is a very powerful one because relationships provide meaning to people. Relationships evolve and change in very important and relevant ways for us in marketing and brand management. We think ultimately this is going to drive this new relationship economy that we've been talking about. And in the end, from a very tactical point of view, we think the approach is very useful for brand strategy, brand tracking, advertising research, and even customer experience and loyalty. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, John, for those